I'm done with you two. Just die here. My husband left those words hanging in the air as he abandoned me and our 4-year-old daughter in a snowy mountain. Within the dense wilderness, I had no idea where we were. The icy winds bit into our bodies, making us shiver uncontrollably. "We just have to follow Grandma," my daughter suddenly exclaimed. I looked in the direction she pointed, but there was no one there. Still, I decided to follow her lead, because my beloved daughter has some strange power. My name is Nancy, a 32-year-old remote worker. I met my husband Mark, of the same age, at a group blind date. Mark was a charismatic entrepreneur since college and a smooth talker. I fell in love with him and decided to get married. Mark's family was well respected in our local area, so our friends admired and envied our relationship. Shortly after our wedding, at the request of my in-laws, we moved in with them. They were kind people, but my mother-in-law required constant care due to her frail health. "Nancy, I heard you are a nurse. My wife is so frail, and I've been so worried. We are grateful that you came into our lives. If I can be of any help, I am more than happy to do so," I replied. I quit my job as a nurse to take care for my mother-in-law and started working from home, as I always wanted. I've always enjoyed web designing and creating websites, so I turned my hobby into my profession. It was a job I could do at my own pace, without any strict deadlines. However, one thing that bothered me was that even after 3 years of marriage, we hadn't been blessed with a child. Mark's business was thriving and expanding, opening branches here and there. But he got carried away with his success, frequently going out and rarely coming home. "Listen, Mark, your mom isn't doing well. You should spend some time with her. I'm sure she wants to see you, even if she doesn't say so." "Huh? You are there for her, aren't you? I'm busy." No matter how much I pleaded for his mother, Mark didn't listen. I wanted to show our child to my bedridden mother-in-law who didn't have much time left, and I felt guilty that I couldn't do that. "I'm sorry we couldn't give you a grandchild yet." "Don't say that. I'm satisfied to have a daughter like you, Nancy." My kind mother-in-law was like my real mother, since I lost my parents at an early age. On days when the weather was good, I would take her for walks in her wheelchair, or make nutritious soft-boiled food that she could have with ease. I did my best to make her life comfortable. One day, she called me to her bedside. "I'm glad. You're going to have a lovely daughter soon. She'll be born around the time jasmine will bloom, so name her Jasmine." I would be delighted if that's true." I was puzzled by my mother-in-law's strange words, thinking that maybe her sickness was causing her to hallucinate. Not long after, she passed away, leaving me utterly devastated. I had been by her side every day for the 3 years since we got married. Not long after the funeral, I discovered I was pregnant. The due date was in July, the season for Jasmine. Just as my mother-in-law said, it happened, and I was stunned, but more so, I was overwhelmed with joy. I couldn't wait for Mark to come home, so I could share the news. "Mark, listen! I'm pregnant!" "Wait, really? I'm not good with kids. I don't think I want any right now." "Hey, are you being serious?" "If you want to have one so bad, go ahead. But I'm not taking care of it. You'll have to raise it on your own. You're deciding to have it, so you better figure out the finances yourself." I was left speechless by his harsh words. I could smell alcohol on him every day when he came home from work. His clothes reeked of sweet perfume. I had a good idea where my husband Mark was spending his time. For him, I was merely a convenient housemaid who took care of his parents. But I couldn't give up on the precious life growing inside me. I managed to get the necessary things using the money I saved from when I was single and the earnings I had from working. And just as my mother-in-law predicted, our daughter was born during Jasmine's blooming season. We named her Jasmine. She was a beautiful child with glowing skin, who resembled my mother-in-law in some ways. Jasmine grew healthily, but she was a unique child. She would laugh and wave her hands when no one was around since she was a baby. When she started speaking broken words around the age of 2, she began talking towards the family shrine. "Grandma, do you like Jasmine? Jasmine loves Grandma too." Even when I asked Jasmine who she was talking to, she just smiled. When she was 3, I often saw her deep in conversation with someone in the corner of our loft. "Hey, Jasmine, who are you talking to, and about what?" "Well, Grandma said she will give me her bracelet in the drawer." "Grandma did?" "She said she knitted them using the fabric of her favorite sundress." Intrigued, I opened my mother-in-law's drawer. And there I found a hand-knitted bracelet. Watching Jasmine happily wearing the bracelet, my father-in-law murmured nostalgically, "Ah, those were made from the sundress my wife loved to wear when she was young, so she made them into bracelets. She was skilled at knitting." Surprisingly, it seems that Jasmine can truly communicate with my deceased mother-in-law. But fearing it might bring some harm to her, I decided not to disclose this to anyone. Our days were peaceful, but the good times didn't last forever. Mark was out splurging and abandoned his work. His company was now on the verge of collapsing. We could barely afford our living expenses, relying on the money my father-in-law provided and my earnings. Eventually, Mark had to ask his father for financial help. Thanks to that, his company was somehow able to recover. But would Mark, who continued to lead a carefree lifestyle, change? I was feeling skeptical. One day, Jasmine started saying something concerning. "Daddy is planning to do something bad." "What do you mean?" "I don't know, but Grandma seems worried. She told me to be careful." I didn't quite understand what she meant, but her words lingered in my mind. What kind of trouble could Mark get into? Is it something related to his company? A woman? Money? I thought about it, but without any evidence, I couldn't confront him. But just to be safe, I started carrying a voice recorder. And I told my daughter not to tell her father that she could see her grandmother. It was because I had a vague feeling of unease. Then I found numerous receipts from strip clubs and bars while going through Mark's stuff. Despite the company's financial struggle and even after asking his father for help, his habit of going out hadn't changed. I also found a note saying, "Consult the gang about the plan." What was the gang referring to? If what my daughter says is true, my mother-in-law has been warning us. It might be indicating that danger is approaching for me and Jasmine. I got shivers running down my spine. For several weeks afterward, I was on guard, but in the end, nothing more happened. Gradually, my sense of caution was pushed to the back of my mind, and I resumed my daily life. One day, my husband, unusually in high spirits, spoke to me. "Thanks to Dad's assistance, my business is doing better, and we're making greater profits. So, how about we go on a family vacation after a long time?" Long time? More like for the first time. "Oh, is it?" Jasmine was so young. I booked a hot spring near an amusement park in the mountains. Jasmine will surely be thrilled. Is that so? My heart was wavering. Though there are still some doubts about my husband, I couldn't completely ignore the desire to believe him, who was showing his gentle face, like old times. If my husband has genuinely changed his mind, this could be an opportunity to mend our relationship. With this thought, I agreed to the family trip. And as I prepared for the trip, I gradually forgot about what my daughter had said and was excited about the long-awaited trip. On the day of the trip, I was surprised to see the rental car my husband had borrowed. It was equipped with snow-tread tires, which made me slightly afraid, thinking we were heading into a snowy mountain. But I couldn't refuse at the last minute, fearing it would spoil the trip and my husband's mood. I quietly sat in the back seat of the car driven by my husband with my daughter. But in hindsight, I should have been more cautious. More than an hour after our departure, it felt like my husband was driving deep into the mountains, saying we were heading to the hot spring. Moreover, there was quite a lot of snow. Soon, we passed by the interstate and started driving on a side road, and I thought something was wrong. "Hey dear, isn't this road strange? Do you think there would be a hotel on a mountain trail that's this off the interstate? Are you sure we're on the right route?" But my husband didn't answer anything and continued driving, his frightening face frowning, looking straight ahead. Feeling anxious, I held my daughter tightly and bit my lip. And then, on the path where there was no road, my husband abruptly stopped the road. "You two are of no use to me anymore. Sleep quietly here." Saying that, my husband dragged me and my 4-year-old daughter out of the car. "Oh, I almost forgot. I'll be taking your phone with me." "Wait, dear!" No matter how much I screamed, my husband ignored me. And the moment he started the car, he turned to us, smirked, and drove away. No way. We were left behind. Snow was falling all around, and we didn't even know where we were in the thick forest. My husband had taken my phone, but I had secretly put a spare one in my backpack. Unfortunately, there was no signal, and I couldn't call for help. Still, from the moment the car left the interstate, I had a bad feeling, and both Jasmine and I were wearing our winter coats and had our backpacks on. Moreover, since it was winter, I had many things packed in my bag, for in case anything happened. Although I thought it would be fine, my daughter Jasmine's words had been lingering in my mind. I had prepared various things just in case, but I never expected this to happen. The wind that blew was as cold as ice, making me shiver down to my core. I took out a disposable hand warmer from my backpack, warmed my body, and calmed Jasmine down by giving her a caramel candy to chew on. Even as I did this, the snow only got worse, and it seemed like we were going to end up stranded, all alone. What should we do? As I was at a loss, Jasmine suddenly shouted out, "Mom! Grandma is saying she's coming over here!" I looked in the direction Jasmine was pointing, but there was nobody there. No, I couldn't see anyone, but it seemed like Jasmine could. "We should do as Grandma says." Jasmine confidently started to walk, and I decided to follow her. After all, she has a mysterious power. That's why I believed we'd somehow make it. I think that's what I wanted to believe. I walked carefully through the accumulating snow, holding Jasmine's hand tightly so as not to slip. "Mom, I see a light! Grandma is telling us to go towards it." Indeed, I could see a light in the direction Jasmine was pointing. We're saved, I thought, feeling like I was about to burst into tears. "Thank you, mother-in-law." I quietly whispered my gratitude to my mother-in-law. Finally reaching a hotel at the foot of the mountains, we decided to rest there to warm up. I had put extra cash in my backpack, so I knew we could stay for a while. And now I began to plan my revenge on my husband. Don't think I'll forgive you for this. I'm going to thoroughly investigate why you wanted us dead, so be prepared. 5 days later, I contacted my father-in-law. My father-in-law was very surprised to hear from me, but when he found out that Jasmine and I were safe, he was very happy and came to pick us up from the hotel. According to my father-in-law, my husband had been telling people that my daughter and I fell into a valley in the snowy mountains and died. I was flabbergasted. On top of that, he apparently said, "We searched, but couldn't find them. It doesn't look like we'll be able to find them until spring. And it's sad to leave it at that, but we're going to hold the funeral first." Despite my father-in-law telling him to wait a little longer, he was going ahead with the preparations. Furthermore, my father-in-law handed me something. With that, I found out a shocking truth. Upon visiting my husband, sure enough, preparations were underway for our funeral. Large photographs of Jasmine and I were being displayed as portraits. Then, Jasmine and I suddenly appeared on the scene. "What? How come?" The relatives helping with the preparations were shocked, almost dropping to their knees. Stunned and staring wide-eyed at us, my husband blurted out a silly voice. "Huh? You're alive?" "Unfortunately for you, we're alive and well." How?" "You thought we would die as you planned, didn't you? After you left Jasmine and I deep in the snowy mountains." "What are you talking about?" People around us began to stir. No surprise there. If my husband intentionally left us, even though he told everyone we had fallen into a valley in the snowy mountains, this would be a serious crime. "Stop lying!" "Can you say the same after hearing this?" I played an audio from the hidden voice recorder I had. "I don't need you guys anymore. Just die here." Mark's voice echoed, and the people present started to stir even more. "I never said that! She's making up lies!" He tried his best to shut me up, but his face was pale and his mouth was trembling. To finish him off, I played a video from my phone. In the video, Mark said, "As planned, I abandoned them in the snow-capped mountains. With the life insurance money from my wife and daughter, my company can recover, and I can also enjoy a luxurious lifestyle. Of course, I'll also repay the loan I took from your group with some extra, so please, wait a little." The video perfectly captured him on the phone with someone in the car. He tried to shut off the camera in a hurry, but it was too late. Everyone was whispering, giving Mark cold, scornful looks. "How did this get out? Who was it?" "I asked your father to copy the footage from the dash cam in the rental car you used." "Dad, you abandoned your own son? Why would you side with a complete stranger?" Mark said as he confronted my father-in-law. However, it seemed that my father-in-law was very angry, glaring at Mark with a terrifying expression. "Well, it's no surprise that he would abandon you. After all, you secretly took out a large life insurance policy on not only Jasmine and me, but also on your father." I wonder, when you mentioned group, did you borrow money from a sketchy organization and then targeted our lives? Unbelievable. My father-in-law stood imposingly, thrusting a life insurance policy he found in Mark's drawer at him and shouting, "You were planning to kill me too, weren't you? You wanted all my assets to yourself, didn't you? How dare you call yourself my son?" And so, with accusations from his father and evidence piling up, Mark, now cornered with no way out, made a startling statement. "Look, everyone ended up alive. So it's all good, right? I was forced into doing this by loan sharks. I had it tough too. So forgive me. Don't make me laugh. There's no way I can forgive you. I'll be reporting this to the police. No way! We're a family! You can let this slide, right? Please? And so, Mark got on his knees and bowed in front of us. My father-in-law and I looked at each other in disbelief. I'm sorry. I'll change my ways. Please forgive me. Spare me from the police. I'll turn my life around. With his forehead rubbing against the floor, shedding tears, snot, and drool, Mark made a truly pitiful sight. There's absolutely no way. I'm utterly disgusted with you. You can go to hell. Mark probably expected his apology to solve the situation, though hearing this, he was shocked. One of the relatives who had been listening to our exchange had apparently reported it to the police, and the police arrived to take Mark away. In the end, with all the evidence against him, Mark was convicted of a serious crime for attempting to take the lives of his wife, daughter, and his own father. He will likely be behind bars for a very long time. My husband's company went bankrupt, and it's clear that his life will be miserable even if he gets out from jail, as his family, including my father-in-law, have all turned their backs on him. Furthermore, his friends who led my husband astray have also been arrested. We obviously got divorced, and I won full custody of our daughter, Jasmine. In addition, at the earnest request of my father-in-law, Jasmine and I formed a special adoption bond with him and received his inheritance as a gift while he's still alive. Now we live with my kind father-in-law. He and I enjoy watching over Jasmine's growth. My father-in-law often tells me, "Find a good man and get remarried. I will give you my blessings." But for now, I have no intention of getting married. I am more than happy with my life right now. The other day, Jasmine whispered in my ear, "Grandma says she's glad, but we can't meet her anymore, so she's saying goodbye." It made me a bit sad, but if it means that there's nothing my mother-in-law needs to protect us from anymore, then I guess it's a good thing. Dear mother-in-law, I will protect Jasmine with everything I have. I made a promise to her today as I placed my hands together in front of her grave.
Get over here now and pick up the old hag we kicked out of our house because we want nothing to do with her.
About a month after my father's funeral, I received an unexpected call from Jackson. He had kicked my mother out of the house and demanded that I take care of her from now on. I was taken aback, unable to comprehend the situation immediately. "You're joking, right? You didn't actually kick Mom out of the house."
Come see for yourself. Oh, and I let her take Dad's memorial tablet.
"Why would you do something so cruel?"
I have no use for Mom now that we can't get Dad's inheritance. She's just a poor burden, isn't she?
I was shocked. Apparently, my late father had debts, and after paying them off, there was no inheritance left. This was news to me. Even worse, Jackson and his wife had been living in the family home all this time. It was outrageous.
It's getting dark soon. If you don't come to pick her up, Mom will be sleeping on the streets.
How could you be so cruel? I will never forgive you for this, Jackson.
I don't need your forgiveness, ha ha ha.
That's just too harsh. Jackson hung up without hearing me out, and subsequent calls went unanswered. When I managed to reach my mother, she confirmed that everything Jackson had said was true. Angry at Jackson and worried for my mother, I had no choice but to drive over to where she was. I am Lily, a 27-year-old woman in a hurry. 3 years ago, I married Mason, who is the same age as me, and we've been living together since. At the beginning of our marriage, we lived with my parents in the family home, but 2 years ago, Jackson and his wife abruptly moved in. They said our presence was making the place crowded and we were forced to leave. My older brother Jackson, 8 years my senior, has always been selfish, but his marriage seems to have enhanced that trait. Our family home, where I was born and raised, is a spacious mansion, inherited from my grandfather with extensive land. There should be no discomfort in living together. I was not satisfied with the situation and urged with Jackson, but my husband, who hates conflicts, urged us to leave. Around that time, my father was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which had already significantly worsened. I wanted to spend his last moments with him, but that didn't happen. The disease rapidly consumed my father, and he passed away a month ago. My heart ached knowing that my mother must be in much more pain than I was. To have my own brother treat us this way, amidst all the fresh sorrow, it was pitiful. What would happen next was truly a shock. An hour later, when we arrived at our family home, my mom was sitting desolate on a suitcase in the garden. The front door was locked. Jackson, she said, had taken her keys. Using my set of keys, I unlocked the door and walked in with my mom. Jackson and Olivia were sprawled on the sofa, nonchalantly watching TV. Is this some kind of joke?
Huh? How did you get in?
I used my key to open the front door. Isn't it obvious?
Ugh, slipped my mind. Leave your key, take the old lady, and go.
This isn't funny. How can you be watching TV after kicking your own mother out of the house? Besides, if the house remained, even after Dad's debts were paid off, Mom has a right to live here.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Infuriated by Jackson's dismissive attitude, I stood in front of the TV. Mom has a right to inherit this house. If you can't live with her, you should be the one to leave, Jackson.
Shut up. This house is mine. Dad gave it to me when he was alive. Don't act smart without knowing anything.
What? What do you mean? There's no way Dad gave this house to you, Jackson, before he died. Mom also looked puzzled, shaking her head. In the face of our confusion, Jackson smirked and got up from the sofa, bringing out an envelope from a room in the back.
Look at this.
What's this?
It's proof that I inherited this house.
The envelope contained documents proving the inheritance, prepared by a judicial scrivener, and his real estate ownership certificate. He said that the property had been transferred to his name a month before Dad passed away. Mom and I were shocked as we looked at the documents. Why would Dad do something like this? Asking a departed person doesn't yield an answer. I sighed, looking at his picture. Why would Dad hand over the house to Jackson without discussing it with Mom?
Because I'm his favorite, of course. I told him that Mom would take the house once he passed away, so he gave it to me while he was still alive.
That can't be. I can't believe it.
Open your eyes and face the reality.
No matter how many times we checked the documents, the property was in Jackson's name. All this just for a house? My mom muttered in disbelief. Is there no other inheritance? Nothing left for Mom?
Nothing. Be glad that the debts are cleared.
This can't be real.
You're not just worrying about Mom. You realize there's no inheritance for you either, right?
The bank card he handed over contained only a few dollars. I wasn't after Dad's inheritance, but it was a shock to learn that he had left me nothing. This is too cruel. And to add insult to injury, Olivia was laughing her heart out seeing our dejection.
Now get lost. You poor people have no business here.
Jackson and Olivia forcibly drove us out of the house. Ouch, that hurts. Mom had fallen and scraped her palm when they pushed us out. Blood was seeping from the wound. As I wrapped her hand in my handkerchief, tears of frustration welled up and fell. My mother, seeing me like this, gently wiped my tears, her eyes filled with sorrow as well. Mom, our place is small, but come stay with us. But I don't want to impose on Mason. I'll find somewhere else to stay, don't worry. I just can't leave you like this. I'm going to call Mason right now, just wait. Wiping my tears, I grabbed my cell phone and dialed my husband. From the other end of the line, I heard Mason's voice.
Hello?
Mason, I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. My mom has been kicked out of her house. As I explained the situation to my surprised husband, he hummed in understanding, though he seemed a bit hesitant. I held my breath waiting for Mason's response.
Our apartment is pretty cramped compared to Mom's house. It might not be the most comfortable.
Yeah, our place is tiny.
But I don't mind. Bring your mom over. We've had times where we were taken care of at home, too. In times of trouble, we should help each other out.
Mason, thank you so much. My husband is a kind man with a big heart. He could never leave someone in need. Quickly, we took Mom to our apartment, and from that day on, we lived together. However, living with 3 people in our small apartment was certainly cramped. We don't have enough savings to buy a house yet, but should we move to a slightly larger place?
That might be good. I feel bad for your mom in this small space.
As my husband and I were searching for properties on the computer, my mom's cell phone rang. After a while, she hung up the phone and said something we never could have imagined. Why don't we live in my Highlands condominium?
Wait, what?
Highlands condominium? Yes. What do you mean? My mother began to explain, to our surprise. Apparently, my grandfather, who was a wealthy man, was quite a spendthrift and spent all the money he made in a day on that day. In order to deal with his constant borrowing, my grandmother had no choice but to sell off their farmland and make ends meet. According to my mom, my father was also a big spender. But we don't have any assets other than the house we lived in, so I was really worried about our future. That's why I invested in real estate with the money I earned when I was working before I got married. My husband and I were absolutely stunned. It turns out, in addition to the Highlands condominium, my mom was also managing an apartment building and had made a significant amount of money from her real estate investments. I can't even comprehend this. It's too amazing. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Anyway, I just got a call from the management company that there's a vacancy in the Highlands condominium. We can move in next month. What do you think? There was no reason to refuse such a generous offer. Plus, it was a Highlands condominium with 3 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen, located just a 5-minute walk from the station, which was much more comfortable than our current situation. Thank you, Mom, but we may only be able to pay as much rent as we are for the apartment. You don't need to worry about that. No way. We have to do this properly, even if we're family. Oh, I need to tell the landlord that we're moving out. Looking at my husband and I beaming with joy, my mother's face brightens too. Time flew by as we busied ourselves preparing to move in. Before we knew it, we had spent 2 months living in our new home, Highlands condominium. As I was about to head out for some shopping, I was taken aback when the Jackson couple suddenly appeared in front of the condominium entrance.
Why are you, a pauper, living in Highlands condominium? Did you hit the jackpot or something?
Of course not. Highlands condominium has always belonged to my mom. Jackson and Olivia were both taken aback.
What?
They exclaim in unison, looking at the towering condominium. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at their confused and goofy expressions. Jackson, his face flushing red, began to seethe with anger.
That wretched woman! I can't believe she was hiding this from us while pretending to be poor.
My mom never said she was poor. You just assumed it, Jackson. Plus, she inherited a large house. What's wrong with that?
That's not the point.
Don't yell here. It's disrespectful to the other residents. Besides, how did you know I was here? Jackson said that when he couldn't reach my mother, he tracked her down using her mobile phone's location. Why are you trying to contact Mom now after kicking her out? I bet it's something nasty again.
Regardless, if Mom is here, I want to see her. Let me in, now.
You must be joking. If you hurt Mom again, I couldn't bear it. If you have something to say, you can tell me. But they kept insisting on seeing my mother, without revealing why. The Jackson couple seemed rather flustered. Weren't you living comfortably in your huge family house, just the two of you?
It's none of your business.
Fine, if you don't want to tell me, that's okay. I have to go now. Bye. As I tried to walk past the Jackson couple, Jackson suddenly grabbed my arm tightly. Ouch, let me go.
Just call Mom.
Absolutely not. I'll call the police. But Jackson just scoffed at me, as if looking down on me.
There's no way the police would come for a simple family argument. Even if they did, there's no way you could sue me for just grabbing your arm.
I suppose you're right. It was true. Calling the police over something so minor might not only be futile, but also disruptive to others. I felt bad and ended up not saying anything. Fine, I'll tell my mom, but only if you tell me why you're here.
The utility bills for that house are ridiculous. Just for the AC, the electric bill is $500. This is no joke.
Their old traditional style house had more than 8 rooms, so it was no surprise that utility costs were high. But even so, a $500 electricity bill seems a little steep. It was a particularly hot summer, so they probably overused the AC. I thought you would have known that from the start.
How would we have known? Mom used to pay the bills.
Jackson scratched his head frantically as Olivia fumed. There's no way we would have known. Do you know the property tax for that house is $5,000 a year?
What?
I can't believe you didn't know.
Why would an old house like that cost so much? How are we supposed to pay that?
Our house is old and has a large yard, so it's only natural that it would cost a lot to maintain. I also pointed out a reality to the Jacksons that they might not have realized. And you know, apparently it costs more in taxes to give away property while you're alive than after you pass away. This is going to be tough going forward.
Wait, is that true?
I see you didn't know. I told them this was all true, information I had heard from my mom, and the color drained from the Jacksons' faces. Seeing the stunned Jacksons, Olivia burst out in anger, saying, "It's your fault for not doing your homework!" And they started fighting right in front of me.
After all the trouble we went through to get Dad to change the name on the house, this is too much.
That's what you get for doing something so underhanded.
But even Dad said clearly that it would be better to give it to me than to your mom.
I can't believe it. I was shocked and fell silent, realizing that my father had disregarded my mom and me. Then, seizing the moment, Jackson made an outrageous request.
You can have the house. Let's exchange it for this Highlands condominium.
What are you talking about? This isn't mine, it belongs to Mom.
Please, talk to Mom for me. I beg you.
I promise to pass on your message, nothing more.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Feeling ridiculous for even engaging with them, I gave up on shopping and started to head back into the Highlands condominium through the entrance, but the Jacksons tried to follow me in. Their audacity left me speechless. I'll sue you for trespassing.
You just told us that wouldn't be a legal issue.
It seems like they won't get the message until they suffer a real consequence. Exasperated, I called out to the management office next to the entrance. Excuse me, could you please call the security? Someone who's not a resident of the Highlands condominium is trying to force their way in.
What? Wait a minute.
The security guard, who was on standby 24/7 at the Highlands condominium, came running immediately. With the large security guard in front of them, the two of them were startled, and I warned them once again to avoid the same thing happening in the future. I didn't call the police just now because you only grabbed my arm, But if you try to use force or enter the Highlands condominium again, I will really call the police, okay?
We beg you, don't do that.
If I even catch a glimpse of you, I'll report it. So go back to your mansion that you got from Dad. Got it? Apparently scared of the police, the Jacksons hastily retreated. I went back to my apartment and told my mother about the exchange with the Jacksons. But why did Dad let Jackson inherit the house? As I was feeling downcast, my mom smiled. Dad must have known what he was doing when he let Jackson inherit. He didn't want to burden me or you, Lily. Even though Dad was indifferent about money, he cared for me a lot. Of course, he always said he loved you, Lily, so much. Really? I was overjoyed to hear that my father felt that way about me. When my mom heard about the inheritance from Jackson, she muttered, "Are you going this far?" Because she realized that he had given a severe punishment to Jackson, who was always self-centered. You knew how Dad felt, Mom. Of course, dear. We've been together for 38 years. I know what he's thinking without him saying a word. Besides, Jackson never took care of Dad when he was sick. I was under the impression that the Jacksons were looking after my father. However, it turns out they hardly ever visited him, not at home and barely in the hospital. When I visited my dad, he would often tell me,
Jackson comes to see me, and you have your job to attend to, Lily. There's no need for you to go out of your way.
I took his words to heart, not realizing that it was a gentle lie meant to ease my worries. I had it all wrong about Dad. I feel awful. I want to apologize. Don't fret, Lily. Your feelings are reaching Dad in heaven. The ones who should worry are the Jacksons. Who these days would buy a big, high-maintenance house like that? I bet they'll struggle to find a buyer. Ha ha. The truth in my mom's mischievously gleeful words became evident after a while. The Jacksons, unable to maintain the house on their own, had put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer. They continued to live in it even a year later. In the midst of all this, Olivia accidentally started a grease fire while cooking chicken, and the house quickly burned down. And since they didn't have money for fire insurance, their life is going to get even tougher. While I understand their predicament, it doesn't concern me. Apparently, the Jacksons are now camping out in the burned-down remains of their house. Living in the Highlands condominium is absolutely fantastic, and I can only feel gratitude toward my mother. I've been paying my mom rent every month, but it seems she's been saving it all to ensure we won't face hardship in the future. Every day is filled with peace and happiness as I live with my incredible mother and kind husband. As I visited my father's grave, I vowed to him that I would continue to repay my mother's kindness.